it's Galfi Galfette. Today I'm going to talk to you about the grid, the rule, and Quantize. To begin with, you're familiar with the grid, which is right there in front of you every time you open a project. It can display several units. The units are displayed on the ruler here at the top. At the bottom of your screen, you can see the grid's primary unit. Here it's bars and beats. If you don't see this module, right-click on the toolbar and tick Time Displays. See the 3 vertical dots to the right for this module? If you click on them, you can now display the grid's secondary unit. Here I've set it to display seconds, but you can change the primary and secondary units by clicking on the icon to the left of each zone. For example, here I've switched the primary unit to seconds, and you can see that my ruler display has changed. Next, let's talk about snapping. For example, the settings that will enable you to set your events in relation to each other. If you don't see the snapping settings, right-click on your toolbar and tick Snap and Grid Type. By default, snapping is set to grid with the precision of a bar. This simply means that you can only move your events by 1 or more bars at a time. If you modify in bar and beats, you can now move your events over 1 or more beats. I'll tell you a little bit more later in this video about the use Quantize. And finally, a zoom adapted snapping means that the more you zoom, the smaller and more precise the snapping units will be. Here you can see bars and beats. If I zoom in, we'll see half beat, quarter beat, 1/8 beat, etc. You can also change the origin of snapping. Here we're on the grid, so the grid is magnetic. But if you select events, the events become magnetic. The grid remains magnetic on the bars. And if you select cursor, now it's the cursor that's magnetic. You can see that there are other settings. Personally, I always choose the grid, events, and cursor are magnetic. The precision adapted to the zoom. As for grid relative mode, for example, if an event starts at the position 3.04.01, Snap is set to grid relative and the grid type pop-up menu is set to bar. You can move the event in steps of 1 bar to the positions 4.04.01, 5.04.01, and so on. As for shuffle mode, I'll tell you about it in another video, as it has several uses. You can also add other rules in addition to the main one. You see here, I've got a track that shows me seconds, while my main rule shows bars and beats. To add 1 or more ruler tracks, as with any other track, either use the plus button here, then select the track type, or simply right-click in this area. This opens a menu displaying all track types. Choose Rule and the number of tracks you'd want to add. You can edit the number of rules by double-clicking on the number. You can see that here, my ruler track has appeared in the list of audio and MIDI tracks. As I've activated the horizontal divider, which separates audio, MIDI, instrument, folder, group, and effects tracks from other tracks, I can simply click on my ruler track and, leaving it clicked, move it above the divider line. The ruler track displays bars and beats as the default units, but you can change the units as you wish by clicking on bars and beats. The units of the ruler track are independent of the primary and secondary units of the main ruler. Finally, let me tell you about Quantize. Its precision is set here at the top. Again, if you don't see this module, right-click and check Quantize. When you click on the number, you'll see that you can display different settings. This will allow you to adjust events position with a certain precision. Here my Quantize is set to 1/16th beat. You can see that I have the content of an audio event that is not properly set on my grid. I select it and click the Q button. The event stays where it is, but its content has been shifted to the nearest 16th beat. This function only works on MIDI and audio files. So I come back to the grid types setting. If you choose Use Quantize, then the snapping precision will be set to the Quantize setting. Here, my Quantize is set to 1/16th beat, so the snapping precision will be 1/16th beat, regardless of the zoom. If you choose a quarter of a beat, you'll see that my grid display has changed. That's why I prefer to set snapping to adapt it to zoom. If you have questions or suggestions, feel free to let me know in the comments. I'll see you soon for new tutorials.